You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beast Over Burden. This is the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Sims. With me is Andrew Jackson, the legendary. Hello, Andrew Jackson.
Good afternoon.
Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone's doing well this week so far.
Coming up on Thanksgiving.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Coming up on your birthday. Exciting.
Yeah, my birthday will be the day after this airs. Pretty stoked about that.
I'm excited about that. And then after that, Thanksgiving. So good month of celebrations. Lots of eating.
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to try to think about how to plan for nutrition, asking a lot of questions about training and diet. Although I got an interesting one from a nutrition client this week that I thought would be good to chat about. Because I think it's a common scenario that everybody runs into at one point or another. This client, who's a airline pilot, travels a lot, had a unusually stressful week with additional travel, and he was going through some training classes. You know, he had to like recertify for some things, and so his schedule was a little bit out of whack. He was sitting more than usual in chairs, or at least sitting in an unusual chair or a different chair for a long period of time throughout the day. And his training wasn't particularly like grindy or super duper heavy by his standards, but we were kind of just chipping along, building intensity, kind of a 4-day split that shuffles around a lot because he's a pilot. So, you know, his schedule is all over the place. But came back, started warming up his squat, and something popped or tweaked in the, not even a heavy weight. It was like during the warm up. And so he's pretty frustrated. And our nutrition call just happened to be about a full week after the initial tweak. So the problem that he was wrestling with and the questions that he was asking were around the fact that leading up to the tweak, he had a pretty structured approach to his nutrition and his training because he had a very clear mission, goals he was aiming at. We weren't at PR level, but we were working our way towards it. So he had weights in his mind that he was aiming at. He had dialed in his nutrition. So he was drinking less alcohol, eating fewer snacks, eating less dessert, managing his portion sizes, balancing his plate with vegetables and eating the rainbow, all the things we've talked about. His training was consistent, 4 days a week, home gym, barbell training focused. And then he'd throw in like hotel workouts when he was traveling.
Let me just get this straight. He was doing everything perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, yes, everything was nailed, and he was at PR body weight. So his goal was to lose body fat. And so he was at the lowest body weight he'd been since 2021 or something like that. And the lowest waist, he was just getting under 40-inch waist for the first time since we'd tracked data. So yeah, he just was locked in. He was getting more sleep, everything.
Man, crushing it. Nice job, dude.
Kitchen sink, everything was thrown at it. And then the tweak came, and he started off the call actually asking, like, are there some numbers I should be lifting? Like,
and you knew that it happened?
Yeah, the tweak?
Yeah, like he didn't surprise you with it on the nutrition call.
No. This was about a week later. You know, so we were going through the process, and he was continuing to train. Like, he had some more travel, but he got 4 sessions in. But the first one was like 135 pound floating deadlift and pause squats, the first lower body one. He's doing feet up on the bench to reduce his lumbar extension. And, you know, we reduced all the weights basically. Upper body's been able to mostly stay on track. But then the 2 lower body sessions he got were just barely getting through the range of motion. And I've gone through enough of those that I was just sort of like, well, yep, this is the process. Let's just keep it going. But it was clear very quickly in the call as I pulled the thread on like, well, I usually don't have specific numbers in mind unless somebody's like got those numbers picked out for whatever reason. Like, some people just, in my mind, they're arbitrary. But other than the fact that some people get very motivated by targeting 1,000-pound total or plate milestones and, 400, 500, 600 kind of numbers. Like, I relate to that. But as a coach, I don't look at somebody and think, oh, you should be lifting X numbers. So I was trying to pull the thread a little bit, like, what's going on? He's like, well, when things were going well, I had a very clear goal and I had a real clear thing I was aiming at that motivated me to go into the gym and train and lift weights and work hard, change my nutrition and get to sleep and reduce my alcohol and get more steps. And now I don't know what I'm training for. And so I started eating more, like snacks started creeping back on my plate. Desserts started creeping up because eating makes me feel good. But now, his waist ticked up and his weight even in just like a week or two. But
That's so hard because he was doing exactly what you told him to do.
Yep.
And you and he were on the team that decided when you do these things, you will get what you want. And he was doing them. And then his body just, threw him the curveball.
Yep.
And so now when he's unable to do the things that you both said he needed to do to get where he wanted to be, it feels like such a disappointment.
Yes.
And it's hard to believe that anything that you do is worth doing now because you're not getting what you want anymore. And I think that's the initial gut reaction. I know there's more to it because I've been there. I think that's what it feels like, is like, I'm doing exactly what I thought I needed to do. Now I can't do that anymore. So I feel lots of disappointment.
Yeah. And as I kind of dug more behind, like, where's this coming from? Like, what are you really wrestling with here? It was certainly frustration and disappointment that it happened. And then there was also, he made this interesting comment that because I was doing so many things in an effort to recomposition and drive my weight down, and I had these, this mission that I was on with clear purpose. He knew his why. He didn't say that, but that was like, he had a very clear why every single day to do these things. And now in his mind, without having the linchpin, which was heavy lifting, heavy barbell lifting, he was feeling in doubt about which one. He was like, I don't know which one of these things actually got me the results, which I thought was really fascinating.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I, again, from my perspective, having been doing this for so long at such a level of detail, like, my perspective on it, it's not monolithic. It's not like binary that I need to be doing all or nothing.
And that's why we tell people, like, okay, you want to make some changes. These are all the things you have to do.
Right. But from his perspective, it's sort of this black box. It's like, I'm doing all these things around, like, inputs into this black box, and I don't know which input was getting me the output. All I know is the one that's sort of like anchoring all of my motivation, which is going in and doing the barbell, is gone, or like the heavy squats and deadlifts, at least that is gone, or at least my motivation to go in and do that is gone. So
I'm feeling for him. I really know what that feels like. Feels terrible.
And you can feel it. Like, you can see it. I can totally empathize with it. Like,
yeah.
Well, I guess I don't need to worry about whether I'm drinking or whether I get good sleep. Like,
right.
I don't know. Well, I could just have a little more dessert, because that starts to sort of like feed some sort of at least near-term kind of dopamine or
It's a coping mechanism.
coping. Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of an aha moment. That was the scenario that I was in my mind thinking might be interesting to talk through, like whether you have experiences with that, how you talk to clients, or how listeners could be thinking about the double-edged sword. And I think we've talked about this in the past, that we get hooked initially and learn to love the process of training often because adding weight to the bar and seeing our numbers go up is addictive, or at least it's like, it gives us that dopamine or the whatever.
Yeah, it's validating.
Yes, it validates.
Dopamine, I agree. Yeah.
Validates what we're doing because we can see tangible progress. But inevitably, at some point, your training gets to a point where that's not going to happen every time, or every month, or every year. And then eventually it's only going down and you're just fighting the rate of decline.
Yeah. I have a similar conversation going on with 2 or 3, depending on how you color one of those conversations. 2 or 3 of my clients right now. One of them just had some pain flare up that we've been able to manage for months, which has been really fun. So I had gotten a message from her 2 weeks ago and she's like, I'm ready for more. And I was like, okay. Boom. Next week, pain. And now, she admitted, she's like, I didn't even want to acknowledge this or tell you about it because I know what it means. It means we have to do lighter stuff, do a deload. And I don't like that.
Yep.
And so in my head, and I know it's not going to get better. Pain is not going to get better for her if we just keep loading her up more and more on the regular progression. That is not good. That path is no longer an option, which is hard to say goodbye to. So I was thinking, well, what if we kind of redefine what moving forward is? Where moving forward is being able to go to the gym and feel like you're making an impact and moving towards your goals 3 times a week. And you can have more or less to put into it based on how you're feeling and other life circumstances. But maybe we need to detach, and you've definitely talked about this before, detach from moving forward equal weight on bar going up. Because that is not a given anymore for any of us ever. And it's so hard to kind of detach from that. And then I have another lifter who did well training. This was some years ago. I think it was before COVID. We had a good run together. Then he had to stop during COVID. And then he had a heart procedure. And he's done really well since then, but his training is not the same. And there's still this attachment to, well, this is what I was doing before. This is what I did last time. And, I'm just thinking that has to have had some effect on your ability to recover. I mean, it's your heart. That is a big deal. And so now we're wondering, how do we define progress? How do we make it feel meaningful to you? And kind of acknowledge that happened and all of us, all my clients are getting older, and we know that we become more sensitive to our circumstances the older we get. And then when you're dealing with pain, that is an additional stress. There's the pain, and then there's the stress of the pain. There's the emotional toll, which is a double whammy. So how can we, manage our emotions around that kind of setback where it doesn't become another thing, another hurdle that's just stopping you from moving forward? And it's a tough one because I want to be able to promise to all my clients, you're never going to get hurt again. You're going to get stronger and stronger all the time. But, we do that a lot of the time, but we can't promise that forever. And so when we can't meet that expectation and when they can't meet that expectation for themselves, I think that's where it feels really sad. And that's when you're just screw it. It's not worth it anyway. I'm going to go back to eating. I'm going to skip the workout today. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. You get nihilistic about it. But then think about how you feel 3 weeks after you made that decision. So crummy. I think I've let myself kind of throw little tantrums, but they have to end because you're not going to feel any better after 3 weeks of a tantrum. You're going to feel terrible.
There were 2 messages that I had for him. One that you mentioned is that immediately he felt like the lifting sessions, especially the lower body days, weren't doing, quote unquote, doing anything. They weren't important. And so my first message there was, man, you've got to fall in love with the process of training and know that those days are just as much training as the days are when you're hitting a PR.
Yeah.
We've talked about it in a different context that doing something is always better than nothing. And we know from experience, we know from research that it does not take a very high percentage of weight or load on the bar to maintain muscle mass. It takes a tremendous amount of work and, relatively speaking, intensity to add muscle mass. So know that this time when you're going in, and you might even only be doing 40% of the normal work weight, you are helping to hold on to as much muscle mass as possible and help your body recover because you're going to be pumping more blood through the area. And we've got to find a way to fall in love with that part of training because it is as important, and I would argue even more important than the days leading up to when you hit a PR. Because if he stops training or loses focus for, whatever period of time that he atrophies, then all we're doing is stacking more work that he's going to have to do on the other side to gain back that lost ground. So, one thing that we, I think, got to the same page about was that this training absolutely matters. It's hugely important. And that the why is super clear, that you're training just as much now, even though there's 40% of weight on the bar, as you were before. So get that linchpin back into place. And we need to find a way to bring a mindset to each session that enables you to find meaning and importance from whatever it is that you're able to do.
So it's like we have to, we have that message of you need to accumulate hard but doable sets. So I would say that that type of training is still hard.
Absolutely.
It's got to be very doable.
Psychologically and emotionally very hard.
Exactly. And what you're teaching yourself while you do that is that it's okay to keep moving. Don't teach yourself to stop moving.
Yes.
That is not a behavior that is healthy moving forward. You have to teach your body that it's okay to keep moving.
Physiologically, I think that's part of the recovery process too, that you're proving, if you will, to your body, to your neurological system, that you're going to be okay.
You're all right.
Part of it is just getting your body to chill out.
Right.
A lot of the clenching and spasming and pain is your body trying to prevent injuring further, but
yeah,
the injury might not be there anymore. Or, it's just that is part of the puzzle, is just getting your neurological system to chill out.
And I even think when this has happened to me, and it's what I tell my lifters, is you kind of have to let that flare up run its course. If you fight it, that's what you're going to do. You're force yourself into things and be mad about things. And I do believe the body kind of feels that. But if you just kind of, when a kid is crying because they
that's a great analogy.
Kind of fell, and then they wake up, or when Patrick Mahomes, twists his ankle and gets attention, then he's fine. Just don't give it acknowledge it, be like, oh, okay. But then don't let it win. You kind of just have to let it get its tantrum out. I keep using this word because that's what I think it feels like. It's just okay, do your thing for a little while. Okay, fine. And then we're going to get back together. But it's not a fight. It's a tantrum, but it's not a fight.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that's helpful for me. And you've helped me work through those times where it's just kind of, I'm feeling a lot of resistance about it. I'm mad that it happened. I'm mad that it changed my plans. But I got to put a timer on how long I feel that way.
Yeah, there's a balance there. You don't want to repress the frustration.
Right.
And you also want to recognize that the frustration is usually around a failure to accept reality and let go of expectations.
Yeah.
And that's why I focused on placing, or at least communicating, the value of this phase of training, because at least then you show up and you're at least motivated to go in and do things, because it's going to pay off. Like you said, in 3 weeks, how are you going to feel?
Yeah.
So I actually asked him, what does it feel like when you're going to your pilot's training? Because he's been doing this for over 2 decades, probably 3 decades at this point. He's still going in to train and learn. And he's like, well, it's a lot different because, the circumstances are always changing, and, there's always new situations that you're in, or there's new procedures that come out, or, there's new things that you could learn how to do. And then he's like, and you're probably going to tell me that's exactly what it's like when you're barbell training, aren't you? He just heard himself talking, and I was just started smiling and nodding. And I'm like, interesting, because it sure does seem like the circumstances just changed a lot in the last 2 weeks. And you might need to learn some new things.
Yes. And
new exercises or movement patterns or strategies to deal with this new circumstance. And he's like, you son of a...
And that's so important to let yourself learn, because it's not a matter of if it's going to happen again. It's a matter of when.
To some degree or another. I just had one about a month ago where I just warmed up my dips too fast, I think. I just did a ton of volume. I did 5x5 at 330 pounds or something like that. Pretty solid day.
Yeah, on bench.
And then I think I also did a secondary bench exercise.
Probably did some close grip.
Some close grip, yeah. And then I dips for accessories. So I went over there and I put on like weighted, I don't know, I threw on 24 kilo kettlebell or 32 kilo, I can't remember. And I'm like, I'm warm. I've already done like 10 bench sets. So let's go. Let's get this over with. And it was like 2 reps in, like something in my chest was just like, bling, like it felt like stabbing, something ripped out of socket. But I was just like, yeah, guess that's what happened today. So
guess we're done now.
well, I did a couple body weight just to see like, is this going to work? But I knew, and I know from having done this, that what am I going to do? I'm going to show up the next time and I'm going to adjust and see what happens. Like no drama. It was literally 0 drama. Didn't know what the extent of it was going to be, but I knew what I was going to do. I'm going to show up next time and I'm going to reduce the weight and try to see if I can get back to full range of motion.
You weren't never going to bench again?
No. 3 sessions later, I'm back to normal working weight or whatever it was, 4 sessions. I don't know. So that was kind of thing 1 that we aligned on. And thing 2 that I emphasized was exactly, again, an aspect of what you alluded to about thinking how you're going to feel 3 weeks in the future. Because what I suggested is the heuristic that you might want to try paying attention to is not necessarily whether weight and waist are going the direction you want. It doesn't mean that they can't be going up and down respectively, but how do you feel? Or how did you feel when you were training and you were doing all those things? Do you need to know exactly which one was which? Or do you just need to know that when you were doing those things, you felt good? And what if we just prioritize those things that made you feel good and were getting you the results you want? We still think those are important. And the fact that we know that those things are going to help you recover faster, because those are all investments in your recovery. Sleep, not drinking, eating well, getting lots of protein, not getting excess calories.
And you are still able to take action, which in itself has a really good feedback loop emotionally.
Totally. Right. Those are the 2 big things that I think I tried to suggest that he frame his training around, rather than weight on the bar. But, everybody makes fun of like, oh, it just feels good, man. But really, like, what are we doing this for?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it can't be. There's a difference, I think, between discomfort and suffering.
Yeah.
Like we don't need to suffer through our training. Sometimes training is uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean you have to poke yourself in the eye and starve yourself and, grit your teeth at all times.
Turning yourself into a victim of your own choices and then bragging about it. Seems common.
Yeah. Like pay attention to your body. What feels good? Like do things that over long arc of time feel better. Like that's what we're doing this for.
You can still be challenged and feel good. Those 2 things can exist.
In fact, I do think, and you've experienced this before, one of the challenges when you can't lift heavy is you can't hit some of the discomfort that you're used to that does feel good.
Yeah, you just, and I've known that there are just going to be some workouts that I don't want to do because it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything. I totally know what that feels like.
Yeah.
But it's just so much better than not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we talked a little bit about this year, but like, what are some things that you found that scratch that itch when you can't squat or deadlift heavy?
Leg press has been a good thing to go try out for when like back is flaring up. Belt squat. I do spin class, which kind of gets me into that gear of, fun discomfort where just like kind of lost in the movement of it. Going on walks, I know that's not intense, but, doing movement. And then like I still have a lot of trouble with my shoulder. So I haven't been able to bench heavy in a while, which means I do a lot of push-ups and I freaking hate it. Like I don't care for push-ups. I have to do a lot of them to do anything that's worthwhile. And I get to this day, like 2 days ago, it's just like, ugh, I wish I could just bench. But I can do a lot of back stuff and I'm able to get into like tricep discomfort, back challenging work where I'm just like beat up from an upper body exercise from the things that I can do. So you just got to find the things that you can do and then do those things.
Yeah.
and let yourself try. And it's with all that stuff, I'm not chasing reps or anything, but I am chasing that wonderful pump feel, and that feels good.
Chase the pump. Yeah. Was there a period of time where you couldn't leg press either? Like, did you have any I guess that's borderline compound movement?
I know there were times because I don't even know if I was going to the gym. I might not have had gym access when my back was acting up and I couldn't squat. That was a time where it was just like lunges and body weight squats and meh. But sometimes time is your only friend.
Right. And you might have to find a variation that you don't really enjoy. That becomes, like you said, the voluntary hardship.
That would be the voluntary hardship.
the hard part of the hard but doable when it can't be heavy, yet it might have to just be something you don't really want to do.
Just get it done. Like, I usually look forward to training, but days on like that where I'm just like, oh man, I gotta just get this over with so I can move on with my day.
Yep.
Better having done it than not.
Yes. In 6 months, I mean, especially going into the holidays, where we started the conversation, this was one of the things that triggered that thought for me. Was the last thing you want to do is start making a big change in your lifestyle going into the next 3 months and wake up in February feeling like you totally let yourself down. Like, that's...
I was just thinking, I was like, always think of February. Because that's, if you really just let go, February is going to be an extra. I mean, February sucks.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of the most depressing months of the year, but it will be extra depressing if you've completely gotten out of your good habits.
Well, lately I've been motivating myself by thinking about March, because that tends to be a beach destination month.
That's when I force you to take me to the beach for my birthday.
So it's like, I better get my poop in a group now, or I'm going to be looking like a giant lasagna on the beach.
Yeah, same. My birthday always sneaks up right after winter. Just like, oh man, Christmas, New Year's,
it's
Super
probably
Bowl.
better to think about it as February, because it's so early in March that...
Yeah, you don't have any time. Yeah. Just, if y'all want to join me on my birthday beach excursion, just kidding. Get ready. Start training now. We're going to the beach for your birthday too.
That's true. I am going to be a lasagna at this one. I'm feeling very, just like layers of cheese is what I feel like right now.
Longos.
But I mean, to apply that mentality to my own training, although I feel a little bit like layers of cheese, I'm not just like completely throwing in the towel.
No.
Sticking with all of my habits and knowing that the choices I'm making still matter, and I am making incrementally better decisions, knowing that I'm not totally off the rails, and then things they drift back to where I wanted to be. That was the other thing. I've been having this conversation more with clients about the time horizon that we're dealing with. Is I think there's a tendency to get into this all or nothing mentality, because you feel like you're either on the wagon or off the wagon, versus like, what are you directionally going where you want or not? And so I like to think more about, what choices am I making? How is that affecting the direction that I'm going? And so, I don't know, it takes a little bit of pressure off the time horizon, and prevents me from just being like, screw it, I'll just eat the whole tub of ice cream. I will eat all of the chocolate ribbons buried at the very bottom.
I had an emotional moment, everybody, because I love my mudslide ice cream, because in the center there's a giant strain of chocolate ribbon. And I opened the ice cream container a couple of days ago, and the freaking core was eaten out. And I have enough self-control to not do that. So I was like, this was not me.
Once I find a vein, it's like unearthing gold. You're just like, I wonder how far it goes. This one's huge. It's so satisfying.
That is the total science behind Ben and Jerry's, for sure. Because they put in so many good chunks. Like, that's the best ice cream for high chunks.
But yeah, Cherry Garcia is my sort of treat meal of choice. Although the mudslide ribbon is,
oh man, there's like 3 different kinds of chocolate in there, maybe 4. It's so good. And now I've just started putting pretzels on my ice cream, and it's blowing my mind every evening. I can't wait for the day to be over, so it's ice cream time. Then once I'm done, I go to bed because there's no reason to be awake anymore.
Well, you got to take yourself on those walks, though, right?
Yes. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good conversation all about mindset. You're doing the physical things. I mean, you're helping your client do the physical things of taking a step back from the things that might aggravate it or make it worse. And you have to do that. And I know you do that. We talked about this before about strategies for changing tempo, adding pauses, changing range of motion, obviously changing weight, changing frequency. And that's all doable. The hard thing is the mindset and getting your expectations in gear and staying positive. So
the tempo thing has made so much of a difference for so many clients. It's just like almost immediate that somebody can do. It's obviously going to be less weight, but the same movement pattern slowed down
and still challenging.
The pain goes away. Still challenging.
Very likely that you're performing it absolutely perfectly.
Technique is consistent. And so I find it over and over again. I do that for a few weeks and then they're like, I kind of want to try taking the tempo out and see what happens. And they're fine. And we move on.
Yeah.
One of my clients even canceled shoulder surgery.
Oh.
He was scheduled for first week in November.
Holy moly.
And he met with his doctor and he's like, I just noticed that I haven't had pain for like 5 months. So should we just not do this? And so they bailed like the week before.
That's the coolest.
Yeah.
Man. Glad you saved that one to the end. Nice. There's hope.
Yeah. So, it's like you said, sometimes time is all you need. And I mean, he had this one on the books for like 6 months because he didn't want to mess up his summer plans. And, he had travel and all this stuff. And so he's like, all right, well, I'll just suck it up until November. And he just kind of like got back. I mean, he was just, again, it was interesting because having the surgery scheduled mentally allowed him to take the expectations off.
Oh, for sure.
So he was no longer feeling like I need to be hitting PRs. He was like, I just want to keep the weight in this range.
Yeah.
And sort of like do hard work around this kind of somewhat lighter weight. And then he totally forgot about the fact that he wasn't in pain, after a few
Brains,
months.
man. Brains.
Anyways.
Incredible. Okay. Well, if you need some help talking through something like that, schedule one of our experience calls. We're totally here for you. It's barbelllogic.com/experience. We would love to be able to help you troubleshoot and just kind of listen to you when you're going through something like that. It's very challenging. We've been there. We can talk to you. So that's it for today. Happy birthday later this week, Andrew. If people want to send you any gifts, what should they send you?
Cash money.
Just cash.
Just send the dollar bills, to Venmo. I'll take it. Hit me up on Instagram at Andrew Barbender. I take cash.
And compliments.
If needed, I'll set up an OnlyFans. That's not beneath me. No funny stuff. Just, I don't know what I'm talking about
just
right now.
Just gray hoodies. Gray sweats.
My Instagram actually is my OnlyFans. It's really like, that's the extent that I would do. Is just post my lifting.
Thank goodness for me to know that.
Just you can send money on Instagram now, right?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Actually, I'll take barbells. I had a barbell show up at my doorstep recently as a gift.
I am grateful for because I've been using it. All right, y'all.
Gift cards.
Yep, gift cards. Man.
I'm just kidding. Please don't send me anything. I'm always embarrassed about my birthday. But anyways.
Well, I enjoy
let's sign this up. Let's
okay.
wrap. This is
Goodbye.
like the longest outro
Goodbye,
ever.
everybody. Stop listening until next week.
Bye-bye.